Never have I dealt with anything as difficult as my own soul. Bus Journey, the starting point, is done by an artist who is a part of the autism spectrum. She invites her audience to experience a multi-sensory experience with her work and her experiences as someone with autism. As someone who is an undiagnosed neurodivergent, the abstract colorism of the piece annotates the complexity of a neurodivergent's mind and how one can see and process the world or information. The same cannot be said for the current society that we live in, and their implications for disabled people, physical or mental. Society can seem hell bent on not having support for disabilities until it threatens their own public image and reputation, and suddenly they can be all for accessibility and support. One thing that they seem to always fail at, though, is a support system for budding souls in education. I, myself, had drawn the short stick in that regard, by being constantly disregarded by those who were supposed to help. Growing up, I was always told that I seemed to have an old soul to me, due to my love for books, that I was a bright and smart kid, from how quickly I used to pick things up. But it never helped me in the long run. Whilst praise can be cathartic for kids, it doesn't help them learn new skills, and this was my major setback in education. This setback was hard for me to come back from, as I had to relearn and unteach habits just to be able to hold my place. Autism burnout is a real thing, and my own soul still feels the burden of it now. Never have I dealt with anything as difficult as my own soul. Bus Journey, the starting point, shows the soul's experience of the artist. In my personal beliefs, a soul to me is the willpower and passion that a person possesses, and how these can influence a person on even a subconscious level. This can be especially hard in the growing years of education that everyone has to go through, and the limited support that disabled people have, which can be very damning for one, as those years in education are what can shape those minds. Furthermore, if one doesn't have access to the support that they need, it can either make a spirited person that can easily bend these restrictions with their sole willpower, or it can break down these forces in someone who has been let down time and time again. Not only that, but the difficulty that is mentioned is to emphasize how society's restrictions can break someone's stubbornness and make them complacent with their current flow of life, even if it's something that they don't desire, but with the consistency of being let down by a system and the people who are supposed to help them, it can make one less willing fight against this system for the life that they deserve. Ableism inside academia is nothing less than a lack of absence or recognition. Even with the Equality Act being in for 15 years now, it's still obvious that a lot of institutes seem to drag their feet with actually considering and implementing the changes needed to be inclusive. In other words, ableism is sometimes just a fancy word for a society that doesn't give a fuck. Crip negativity is sometimes just a fancy phrase for how it feels to never have been given a fuck about or to know the damage caused to others when no fucks are given. Never have I dealt with anything as difficult as my own soul. Crip time questions the idea of a single, universally quote unquote normal way to experience time, recognizing that disabled people may have different needs and experiences related to schedules, pacing, and productivity. Crib time can be very debilitating to one's life, especially with being able to grasp life's opportunities. Crib time is time travel. This can affect anyone, and the recharge of the soul can vary for each person, no matter the disability, and how those who are neurotypical and don't have the capacity to even try and understand this can make someone become estranged and outcasted from everyone else and seem to be left behind due to the extra effort they take. This cements the idea of how institutions such as this are built on the explicit disavowal of disability. Crip time is also reflected on the artwork. as the title of the piece itself can represent the overdrive in which one's brain has to go through, as they literally have to send off increased signals in the synapses to be able to take in all of the extra information that they notice. Some people can quickly become overwhelmed or overstimulated and can seem to be this big complex file on everything and anything. Neurotypicals are experts in ignoring useless information, unlike a neurodivergent, who can fixate and pick apart this information. And this can seem like an onslaught, which, Bus Journey, the starting point, depicts this chaotically, especially when including elements such as the crowd, lighting, and also the sounds. The title once again cements this, as it can change someone's viewpoint of it being a set abstract piece and dramatize the intensity of the scene, which is how neurodivergents live every single day. Never have I dealt with anything as difficult as my own soul. The quote itself speaks of a constant, ongoing battle within ourselves, neurotypical or not. Our soul can be our greatest ally or even our biggest enemy. It all just depends on how you wield it for your own drive and benefit. From this, not only do we already have a lifelong battle, but also a social battle in trying to weasel our way into some form within society, which shouldn't have to be a fact for us to begin with. We can't keep up. Crib time can be very debilitating to one's life, especially with being able to grasp life's opportunities. Crib time is time travel. This can affect anyone, and the recharge of the soul can vary for each person, no matter the disability, and how those who are neurotypical and don't have the capacity to even try and understand this can make someone become a estranged and outcasted from everyone else and seem to be left behind due to the extra effort they take. This cements the idea of how institutions such as this are built on the explicit disavowal of disability. Crib time is also reflected on the artwork, as the title of the piece itself can represent the overdrive in which one's brain has to go through, as they literally have to send off increased signals in the synapses to be able to take in all of the extra information that they notice. Some people can quickly become overwhelmed or overstimulated and can seem to be this big complex file on everything and anything. Neurotypicals are experts in ignoring useless information, unlike a neurodivergent, who can fixate and pick apart this information. And this can seem like an onslaught, which, Bus Journey, the starting point, depicts this chaotically, especially when including elements such as the crowd, lighting, and also the sounds. The title once again cements this, as it can change someone's viewpoint of it being a set abstract piece and dramatize the intensity of the scene, which is how neurodivergents live every single day. Never have I dealt with anything as difficult as my own soul. The quote itself speaks of a constant, ongoing battle within ourselves, neurotypical or not. Our soul can be our greatest ally or even our biggest enemy. It all just depends on how you wield it for your own drive and benefit. From this, not only do we already have a lifelong battle, but also a social battle in trying to weasel our way into some form within society, which shouldn't have to be a fact for us to begin